All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to now kick off this next session. Today we have Liz Goodgold with us. Liz is a branding expert who is as good as gold, as they say. Liz Goodgold. Liz is an executive and a consultant who works with companies to brand better and speak gooder. This fiery redhead is the author of 3 books and has appeared on 2 TV shows, dishing the dirt on celebrity branding. She's appeared on every single news channel, including NBC, ABC, PBS, and perhaps even PMS. As a former brand manager of Quaker Oats, managing a $650 million brand, Liz translates complicated strategies for big companies into winning tactics for small businesses. So, without further ado, here to show you how to conduct customer outreach and capture testimonials is Liz Goodgold. And Liz, without further ado.
Perfect. Thanks. I love reading testimonials online that go something like this. Jeff is so sweet. This person was so great to work with. I highly endorse Jamie. And the problem with all of those is they've committed genericide. These are testimonials that could work for absolutely anybody. So what we want to do today is to move away from that and really harness and leverage the power of how do you get testimonials, a formulaic process that works, as well as how do you look at your customer input, including Google reviews or LinkedIn information, so that you can really package it together, put it with your brand DNA, so it works harder for you as you build your business as an entrepreneur. The first place to start is right here. So the first question is a really logical one, which is, when should you ask for the testimonial? And this is the interactive portion, so at any point people can talk here and you can talk to me out there, and think about it. If you ask prematurely, you're going to get an awful lousy review. If you ask too late, you miss the opportunity. So I always think that the best time to ask for a testimonial is when you get that, OMG, I love you. Oh my gosh, you're amazing. Oh my goodness, you've exceeded my expectations. So if you think about work, and with client works particularly, you sort of hit an apex, right? Where you're working, like the beginning is boring and contracts and blah, 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 and getting up to speed. But the minute that you have hit the height, magic hour. And that's when you send and ask for your testimonial. Let me give you some more parameters around that. Most important thing that I like to do is I send an email. Sending an email, you've got to have a really good subject line. And having done 50 of them, my favorite subject line that works so far is favor to ask. Testimonial for. I often get asked by my clients to do it. So in other words, if they get this email from Liz Goodgold, they have no idea what to do. So my subject line is always company name, Acme Corporation, favor to ask for a testimonial. And I do it exactly like that. Other things that I put in that email that are really important is I give them a sample, right? We like formulas. People find public speaking terrifying, and they hate to take the time to write a review or a testimonial. So our whole goal in getting testimonial is to make it easy. Easy, make it effortless. The more that it's effortless, the more likely you'll get a return. So his question was, he's treating prostate cancer and really coming back and asking the question, when should he ask for that review? And my answer is that there's 2 places, and because they're tremendously emotional, right? They're absolutely horrified, they're frightened, right? Frustrated. So the first time is once if they have to have a series of treatments, after that first treatment, they're like, it's so much better than I thought it was, right? So they're like, it was better. It was calming. It was the color blue. They brought me a cup of coffee. They made sure there was good. Someone was sitting next to me, right? That's a thing, because you can't always think at the end that the cancer is cured, right? If you wait until it's cured, that's really a false hope. What you're trying to do, and what I think we all sell, and when it comes to brand, is experience. So to me, anytime someone starts talking about, they took care of me, they gave me blankets, they never left me, I never felt alone, all of those things are really great things, and that's a really good time to ask. Sure. And I'll remember to keep repeating that question for you so everyone is with me. So I send the email, I put favor to ask, I give them a sample, and then I give them a deadline. And deadlines are always written in Friday the 13th. Would appreciate your input by Friday the 13th, meaning the day of the week, as well as the date, and then you'll get it. Okay? Oh, this is one of my clients, and this is his pre-testimonial day. And all I can tell you is length matters. We all have ADD. We cannot sift through this information. I saw this. This is actually even my client before. I've still never read this testimonial. Okay, this is the next one. And something to remember here, if I started today's conversation about these sounded very generic, we want to lower it down and make it specific, terrific. We want to make sure we're talking about what is the one great thing. And we'll talk about it in just a moment. But so keep remembering that phrase, specifics are terrific. We do not want generalities. Because if you could read a testimonial and it could apply to your competitor or any other business, it's not good enough. One of my other favorite techniques is to use someone else's brand to build your brand. That is the art of co-branding. So if you can see in this example, this is the exact same company that I work for. This is the after. So I'm really leveraging Jimmy John's, and you can see from his company's name, Fresher Faster, and one of the key tenets of my client is fast. And so the only thing is, I have one sentence instead of an entire paragraph, and his answer is, and yes, they are fast. This is something I do all the time. Use co-branding. So if you're ever in doubt about, do you get a testimonial from XYZ Corporation or do you get one from Quaker Oats? The answer is you get the one from Quaker Oats. You'll do anything to get that because you build your brand on the back of somebody else. When you're sending more things in there, this is your time, this is your deadline, this is you want 1 or 2 sentences. And don't forget, you can always say, I understand how onerous this could be. Please let me know if you'd like me to write it and you can approve it. That is the absolute best way to get a great testimonial. So this is the time I want to hear from the people here as well as the people online. So my favorite way to do this is to ask for 3 points of difference. So if you have a piece of paper, a computer in front of you, or you're listening online, I want everyone right now with their whiteboard, what are your 3 points of differentiation for your business? And just to be clear, points of difference cannot be quality, value, or service. Okay, that's what every business has to do to just succeed. So Logan, if you're monitoring it, I'd be curious what other people are writing. What do they think is a point of difference?
Audience, accuracy from Sean.
I like that one.
Branding and coloring.
Okay.
Simplicity of features from Benjamin.
Okay. So if you have 3 key points of difference, you want to make sure that every testimonial hits each of one of those 3. So let's go back to that example where I wrote the thing for the McDonald's guy. You're saying, oh, we're going to talk about efficiency. So in this case, we're going to say one testimonial has to address accuracy. One testimonial has to address simplicity. One testimonial has to address the features of the branding colors or something I think that you mentioned.
And then from Mary, knowledge, creativity, reliability.
Right. So do you see what I mean? So those ones, so you should have, I don't care if you have 7, 10, 12, 14, but make sure that each one addresses one of your key points of difference. If every single testimonial says the same thing and it's the same point of difference, it doesn't help you in terms of building the credibility and building the credibility of your own brand. Making sense here? This is my virtual nods of heads and see if I see a thumbs up here for people saying, yes, I'm with you, Liz. Okay, cool. Because I just want to make sure that's making a whole heck of a lot of sense. And then I always give my people a way out. So I've sent them the email, I've given them the subject line, I've given them a deadline, and then to all of it, I just say, throw your hands up. If in doubt, call me. And this is what the second in command from McDonald's Construction did. I talked to him and he's like, Liz, here, let me just ramble. Put a sentence together and I'll approve it, right? It's a home run all the way around. So always give somebody that option who feels like, oh, I just don't want anything else on my to-do list. And that tends to work really, really well. Let's move a little bit from getting those testimonials to how do you leverage the power of LinkedIn? So here's the first question that I have for you when it comes to LinkedIn and looking for your input here. How do you go about getting recommendations on LinkedIn? Yep. So what's the right way to do it? And I'm just curious, how have you done it in the past? Ding, 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 ding. And that is the jackpot of the answer. The best way to get a testimonial or recommendation on LinkedIn is to give a recommendation, right? It can be your client or your customer. It works both ways, right? Reciprocity. So out of anything that I would do, the first step in LinkedIn is to give one and then get one. And I think even if you're doing your own due diligence, whether you think this would be a good customer for you or a good client, I always think that people are pretty self-centered when you realize that they've never given one single recommendation. It just sort of speaks to the personality to me. By the same token, if I start looking at somebody's recommendations and I realize that they're all from 1970, 1980, 1990, they haven't really worked, or they haven't had a lot of customer success since then, or haven't taken this workshop with us and haven't had the courage or the chutzpah to ask for it. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. Perfect way. Beta testers. That's the exact same thing. And then you make it really like they're in a special club. Ooh, shh, thanks. Can we get your first review? Your input, you're one of our first users. Give them all of that good stuff. We can't wait to get your juicy comment. We're listening. And I'll talk just a little bit more in a bit about what happens after you get the unsolicited and Google reviews. But yes, you want those beta reviewers now.
Liz, I'm sorry. Mary, the question was, how do I get recognition on product design? Robert has a follow-up to that question. I'm applying for grants and I need a director of NCAR at UNR to write a recommendation of me and our product. So he's just giving context. Thanks, Robert.
Okay. Good. Okay, cool. I put this huge stamp called rejected because one of the things to remember when it comes to LinkedIn is no matter what they write, you still have to approve it before it gets published. So this is where I'm saying, do not be afraid to say that's not what you want. So a colleague that I was working with, as a matter of fact, I did a combination of branding and coaching. So his first review that he wrote for me was all about, wow, Liz was a great coach. Well, again, doing the same balance, I had enough testimonials saying I was a good coach. I wanted more about how I helped him with his personal brand. So in the nicest way possible, I rejected his first testimonial or review on my recommendation for LinkedIn and said, could you tweak it this way? So don't be afraid to ask for what you really, really want. And then you can do it that way. I hear a lot of my customers, especially in the B2B space, tell me that Google reviews just don't matter. And I'm here to tell you that they do. It's just too easy to take a quick look down and see the number of stars and to get a feel for the business. My husband and I bought a business that had 16 months ago that had a 2.1 overall rating, which is tremendously lousy. But the secret is I kept going back and reading it, and review after review says the owner of this business is a witch, a witch. She's mean, she's a witch, she's a witch. Well, again, part of it is to listen. So everyone who bought it, we do a drug employment screening. You would think that all our lousy reviews were because people failed their drug test. No, if you really read the reviews, it was because she was mean and she was rude. So when we took off with the business, one of our clear goals was not that we needed to pass everybody, but that we needed to treat every single person with respect. So it didn't matter if you were on parole or you were a CEO. Everyone had to pee in a cup, and we were on a mission to change those reviews. We couldn't delete them. We've tried, trust me. But we're now like, woo, we're rocking 3.6. Yeah, so we think that is a huge, huge improvement. The other thing that I like to glean from Google reviews is language. Let me tell you this phrase, speak like your peeps. So for example, we call our business, we laugh all the time, I call it the Pee Emporium. It's a pee in a cup business. That's as technical as I get, okay? I remember working with other people who like to give everything these really hoity-toity names. If you talk to my sister today, she will tell you that she is a physician. I will tell you she's a doctor. I get in trouble with you, I'm going to call my lawyer. I'm not going to call an attorney. And the last is I had a client who told me he was in the modular office wall business. And I'm like, do you build cubicles? He's like, no, we don't call it that. The point is, speak like your peeps on how they address the problem. If everything that you're trying, every business today should be trying to solve a customer problem, right? How you phrase that problem is key. So what I like to do is both look at Google reviews, and then the other thing I like to look at book reviews on Amazon. So if you start reading customer reviews, especially on business books or self-help books, you will see exactly how the customer describes the problem. And typically what you'll find is how you think the problem is and how they talk about the problem are two completely different things. So that's how I like to look at it. I remember early in my career, I started up on the Hill with taking research analysts and working in the oil and gas industry.
Which hill?
Capitol Hill. Yep, Washington, D.C. I started up there, and my first hearing I went to was with Bob Dole, the man who would run for vice president, the one who was the Senate Finance Committee, and the man, of course, who would become a spokesperson for Viagra. And I thought that I could quietly come into his committee and sit at the back row, and no one would notice me. That didn't work out so well. This is the first day of the job wearing the navy blue suit and pearls, and this is what my hair looked like. And all I do remember is Bob Dole said to me, "You, the redhead in the back of the room, come up here." And he pretty much said, one, how could you possibly come into my committee and not introduce yourself? Two, how did you possibly think you could get away with that amount of red hair and not think people would notice you? And three, I was lobbying for ADM, Archer Daniels Midland, which makes ethanol for improving octane. And he said, how come and why wouldn't you own who you are, sit in the front and introduce yourself as one of my constituents? And so it was a lesson that I really took, which is embracing who I am, because LinkedIn is very much a personal versus it's still professional, but it's based upon your brand DNA. And so it's really important to extract what people are saying about you. I remember I was doing one of my early speeches, and I asked people to write down, and I always recommend everybody do this, to really understand what customers are saying and thinking about you and your business, is to ask for 3 verbs that describe them. Understand that this is different. This is your personal brand versus the corporate over here. So when I did mine, and I was surprised to learn this, the number 1 verb that came back, by the way, was energetic. I'm like, never used that word my whole life to describe myself. So I'm like, aha, that became important to start using when it comes to doing what I do. By the same token, it's important for you to see what you think you are and how people are describing you, and make sure that they're an alliance. Or as I like to say, you really want to make sure that you're minding the gap. Because if you think you're hysterical and funny and witty and people say you're dull, you're awful, and you're boring, then you clearly have a branding problem right there. And your reviews and your testimonials are actually never, ever going to match up. Okay, and I'll repeat this question.
Good. Energetic is adjective.
I meant that, yes. Too early this morning, you win. So the question is did I ask for an adjective and I put verbs, and the answer is yes. I have feeble mind, I have no good answer. Yes, we like adjectives quite a bit. Yes, but thank you. Key question I often get is, how do you stay connected to your customers? So one of my favorites, and there's tons of, let me share, is one of my favorite ways is just to catch up with customers frequently. So this is something for our business that we do. Thanks for being a sweet client. I package it with a box of Godiva chocolates. So far, no one has given back the Godiva, so I assume that it is working. But the real big thing here is I always want to stay in contact with my customers. Or to put it more bluntly, I am not looking for a one-night stand. I'm looking for a long-term relationship. So for me, I'm trying to move away from just project-based, or from project-based, do something to move me into retainer-based. And even if it was just a project, I want to make sure that I am going back to them and finding out what's going on. So one of my other favorite things to do is to do a quarterly audit. And there's no charge. So either I say, gosh, please join me for the thing, join me for a cup of coffee, or let me do a quarterly audit, and I get to see and hear everything that's in their business. Well, and all of a sudden you'll discover, well, gosh, we're not getting any traction in this department, or the average order price is going down, or we're hemorrhaging X% of clients, or our lifetime value of the customer is going down. Well, if you have a quarterly audit, you hear it, and guess what? Every problem is an opportunity for a solution. And that's one of the ways I like to do it. Yep. So the question is, what happens if you're in the product business? And how do you keep a personal relationship when it's selling a product versus a service, and it's going to be things? So in the e-commerce world, this is what we call a great, good, nurturing relationship, right? If you're doing a really good email campaign, to me, my favorite thing is, right, the first email, and it depends upon the brand, right? So the first email is, thank you for your order. We're so excited. It's coming in, it's shipping. The second email, get it. Do you want to write a review? You just received it. The third email is, we're so excited. Next purchase, let me incentivize you and give you a 15% off. Fourth email is, let me cross-sell and introduce you to products that you don't know about in our line. Fifth thing is, invite you to join our loyalty program. And you literally take them through a series so that you are never losing contact with those people in terms of a product. And I think it's a way of knowing what's going on. You can eventually incentivize them for a whole host of things, right? Be the first one to do this. Sephora, which sells makeup, actually manages to do events, right, in store, or you're the first person to get a sneak peek. They're still going to make you purchase it, but they might give you an incentive of 10%, 15, or 20% off. Is that making sense? Yep. So I love to do lead nurturing campaigns. And so you have a series. So it's always, if this, then that. If they don't do this, then you do this. And then you typically, by the way, is you do the reverse pyramid. So in other words, the higher there, would you purchase the product again? If their purchase intent is high, their coupon is low. The lower their customer purchase intent, the higher the incentive, right? Because you're trying to maximize your profit. So it makes sense to look at that before it serves up a coupon. So yeah, quarterly contacts. I tend to do audits with these people. I tend to have them join me for coffee. I joined somebody yesterday for my client, or my favorite, oh, join me for a glass of wine. All of those things work, but the real thing is it gives you a chance to dig deeper into the business to find out what's going on. Right? A lot of people, when we talk about this, say, oh my gosh, I don't have enough scale to do a survey. Well, you can always do a really informal survey. And as long as you remember that if you're not going to give any sort of remuneration for the survey, you pretty much get to ask 3 questions, and that's about it. Everything beyond that is just too long, and we don't care. I think every one of us here has been asked to do a survey, and you watch the progress bar and you realize that you are on page 14 of 24. Well, you can't do that. If you really do want to get a bigger survey, I guarantee you have to pay your people. Whether it's an Amazon $10 gift card, you have to do something so that they truly are participating and hearing you.
Liz, we have a question. I think it's related to something you addressed a little earlier on from Zarawa. What should a person do if they get a bad Google review, even though they didn't do anything to hurt the person?
Yep. And this is the toughest one. And I manage, I think it's 6 Google accounts right now, and respond to every single review that's written, which is sad but true. So I'm not kidding. I practice what I preach, which is you have to be listening. So first is you have to find out if it's true, and you have to validate them, right? So the first sentence is always, thanks for submitting your review, and getting a sense of whether it's legitimate or not, right? We're disappointed you didn't have a good thing. You can always reach out privately. Let us know what we did wrong. How can we make it right? The loyalty statistics are pretty clear. If I've goofed it up with you and made it better, you will have a higher loyalty rate than I didn't goof up in the first place. I've also seen it because I do one for a hotel people love to rag and rag, and all they're really looking for is a financial incentive. So a lot of times I will give that person the opportunity. Here's my private email. Will you be open to having a conversation or talking about it so I can truly understand if this is someone who's just looking for a freebie, or is this a real service issue that needs to be addressed and we need to change it? But I'm constantly looking. I mean, I got a terrible review at one point on the P Emporium, and the woman accused us of not wearing gloves. And I'm thinking, in my whole life, trust me, I am not going to touch that without a pair of gloves, right? It just was insanity. And I reached out to her, and what it turned out to be is she was on a prescription drug and she failed her drug test, and she was so pissed at us that she wrote the lousy review. Contacted her, told her she had the opportunity for us to send it out for a medical review, an extra $45. She took down the negative review. Much better. So I'm constantly in there and looking and listening and reading to see what is legit, what's not, and what can I learn from that experience. Okay, so remember I talked at the beginning, the hour, about writing emails, asking for a deadline, and whatnot. So I will tell you, give me just one moment. Yes. So what does this say here? This is called FU for follow-up. NFU. So the worst subject line, and this is actually has been ranked, is just following up. I hate that email more than anything. So what it really means is you're ignoring me and I can't believe it. It means I've tried to sell you and you haven't said yes. It means I've sent you a request and you've done nothing and you've been ghosted. But out of all of them, and I'd love to hear how other people responding here, so I have basically taken just checking in, just following up, completely removed it as a subject line. So I am curious from both people online and here, what could we do instead of just checking in, just following up with you? So good question, and a comment here. Instead of doing FU, we can say do something of greater value, right? This goes back to give before you get. I like that quite a bit. And that could be anything from a white paper, a PDF, a this, an article. There's tons of things you can do. Say, I'm sharing instead of asking. Yep, I like that a lot. Any other comments over there?
Other than that's super helpful, no.
Oh, cool. My other favorite thing is, and my response rates have been really, really high, and I do quite a bit of A/B testing on subject lines. And the winning one for me has always been a question. So, in other words, if it's because I'm trying to sell somebody, not surprising, a proposal gone out, I say, are we ready to move forward? Do you have any questions? Is it go time? Does Wednesday work for you? Can we set up a time? So my favorite, and it's been the highest one yet, is instead of checking in, following up thing is, can we go live on Wednesday? Putting in a question seems to have, for me, to have the absolute best response rates. Oh, so I've had a great experience with a client. A client has had a great experience with me. I've asked for a testimonial. I've looked at my Google reviews, and now the last stage to finish this is my favorite. Who do you know who could benefit just like you from my services? Who do you know who could benefit from my services? So when I ask the question and they give me the name of 3 people, I don't write them down. What I do instead is, again, make it easy, is I ask my client and I write the email for my, there's a theme here I hope you see, right? Which is make it easy for them to do business with you. So instead of that, I write the email that connects me to the prospect of the referral of who I want to work for. Because if I have to wait for my client to say, I am delighted to introduce you to Liz Goodgold, she's really good, it's never going to happen. So instead, if I write it, going back to the specifics are terrific, I will add in exactly why I think I can help that person, right? Attention to detail, has a sense of humor, does this, completes on time, things that people care about. So that's one of the things. And so I'm just curious and interested there too, how often are people asking for referrals? So what I find is when people say, oh my gosh, I haven't gotten many referrals, the answer usually is because they haven't asked for them. And similar to when You ask for the referral when you have hit them at the height of success, right? So when you knew and you know that you've blown it out of the water, this is a perfect time to say, hey, who else do you know who's in exactly that same situation, same industry, same thing, who could benefit from our services? Make a lot of sense? Cool. I didn't know if we would have time, but we do. So I'm going to sort of move us into another direction. It still relates on this on what I just called our little bit of a bonus round. And the reason is because I get asked this all the time, which is people go to a networking event, they go to something and they say, oh my gosh, tell me about yourself. And the worst part is the more time they have, the less you understand what they are saying. So for me, I always think that, oh my gosh, the 37-second commercial is dead. And instead, you really need about 7 seconds to do it. And the best way to do it is to make it match your brand personality. So similar to how I talked about those 3 criteria that you have, whether it's energetic, you're accurate, you're simplistic, you want to make sure that some part of that brand is coming through on this 7-second hook. Okay, why do we do it? Because it's a quick thing. We all have ADD and we want people to get remembered, referred us, and we have top of mind awareness. Only reason in the universe we would do that. So to me, the best ones are where it makes you do a little bit of head whip and you're like, oh, cool. And it makes somebody say, tell me more. That's all we're trying to do. So you heard even in my intro that you did for me, Logan, which is like people say, what do you do? And I'm going to break it down in just a moment. Like, what do you do? I work with people to brand better, speak gooder. That's all I need to say in the universe, right? If they're interested, they will say, ask me a question, tell me more. Not interested, I don't have to say, gosh forbid, what do you do? I sell insurance, right? I have yet to meet anybody who says, I sell insurance, and people go, whoa, tell me more, right? That usually cuts down on every single conversation possible. Yeah, I get this comment a lot where people say, how could I possibly do something? Again, if you're not funny, then how you introduce yourself isn't funny. If you don't think you have the wit, then that doesn't work. But I think there's some things that I do think make a heck of a lot of sense. I put it this way, helping verbs don't help. So many people will give you a formula, and the formula will say, I help entrepreneurs process their paperwork faster. But what I usually get is I help entrepreneurs with their insurance paperwork. Again, we're always trying to sell a benefit, a result, or an experience. So if you are helping entrepreneurs file their paperwork, that's not a benefit. If you're helping entrepreneurs file paperwork faster so they don't get into compliance issues, that's a whole heck of a lot better. I think it's similar to Indeed. Indeed right now says, we can help you get a job. And Indeed's tagline instead should be, we get people jobs. So the helping in there actually makes it uglier and muddier and less, and a whole heck of a lot weaker than the stronger words to look at. Streeter Printing is a good friend of mine, a client, Adrienne Streeter, and she is the most no BS woman you ever have met in your life. And so when she introduces herself, she's a printer, obviously, take a look at her logo, but instead of doing those worthless phrases, which is, I'm a one-stop shop, or these sort of catch-alls, she says this, she goes, I print everything except money and pornography. And it's so much better, right? It also takes the place of, I'm a full-service printer. Because I don't know about you, but I don't understand what the opposite of a full-service printer is, right? I print half the page, I'm a half-service printer. So think about it, and the reason why this one works is because that is completely her. It makes me laugh, so I always like this one. We talked a little bit about co-branding, and this woman, initially, you would look at her Darius communication, and you would go, okay, interesting, but not very fascinating. And how she succeeds in her business is really simple. She says, having worked for Chanel and Christian Dior, I work with people how to communicate better in retail space. The minute she puts Chanel and Christian Dior, she wins. Because I think there's so many people who say, well, I'm a coach. And then you're interested in, well, who have you coached for? When she does it that way, it changes everything. This is mine who used to tell you she was a college, people would think she was a college admissions counselor. And all we switched her to is very simple. What do? I'm the lady who gets your kid into college. What's the benefit? Get into college. And I'll sort of put an aside here because I think people forget this, is we also changed her entire pricing structure. So yes, you pay her monthly as a coach, and this is what it is to get your kid into college, whether it's the essay or all that good and joy, is we created for her goal schools and stretch schools. So we can pretty much be convinced that a stretch school would be Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Wharton. And maybe we made them 5. Anytime she gets a kid into one of those 5 schools, she gets $10,000 bonus. And I remember when we first talked about it, she said no one would pay it. If you talk to enough parents, let me be clear, they will pay it in a heartbeat if you help that get their kid into Harvard. Yep, right? It's real. Ooh, unfortunately, I can relate to this, having been someone who's recently lost her hearing in her right ear. And this is a real organization, and how they introduce themselves from this group is really very simple. They go ahead and they talk about the fact that they work for the Hearing Institute and know this, and 30% of people don't hear well.
They
Always. Always. So the minute you mumble, welcome to my world today, and I can hear people, and I say all the time, speak up, can't hear you. So by muttering, they put it exactly what that person is experiencing and saying, and that's why we're on a mission to work with the 30% of people who have a hard time hearing. Very easy. And it's not funny, but it just is enough to go, whoa, and get their attention. And that should be the theme that you see running through this. Ooh, this is I work with these people, and this is a little bit risque, but we tried it anyway. And this was because the people, they were mostly young who actually represent the organization, which made them really easy to relate to, but it was also a little bit out there, which is they would start talking about just a very simple statement of X% of people get pregnant. And they literally would take it and they said, and that's the pregnant pause that we are working on trying to change the teen pregnancy in America. Oh yeah. Does humor work? Humor always works.
Liz, there is a question online, Zarala again. How can a business turn their disadvantages into advantages when it comes to a sales pitch?
Yep. So if someone does, I can create one, but we can do it. So typically what we hear, and I'll just give you maybe one from our business, but I'm game if this person wants to add. So typically a disadvantage that we hear is that we're small, right? So if someone's small, what's the advantage that we're all gonna come up with? We are hands-on. We answer our phone personally. You can ask for us this. So I kind of need to know that. So what you're really trying to do is turn lemons into lemonade.
Now you just asked them, so we may get a follow-up on that question, but lemons and lemonade, that makes sense. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's always 2 ways to play that, right? Oh yeah, themes at work, rhyme time. So this is easy. So here's one of my guys, and I may have his logo next. It's George James, what do? I'm a DJ, I entertain. It's pretty darn clear what we do. Okay? What's also interesting is I like people to tell people what they don't do. So for example, I'm a massage therapist who doesn't do fluff and buff. Back to the rhyme time. I only work with people in pain. See how it helped define her target market? If you compare that to a chiropractor I met once, who said my target, uses your, makes you think of your Samsung, right? Everybody's my target. And he said that his market was anyone with a spine. I'm like, no, it can't possibly be. Compared to her, right? I work with people in pain. I don't do fluff and buff. I'm a videographer, but I don't do weddings. So don't forget, part of telling and explaining your services is explaining what you don't do as well as what you do. That's our George James, he entertains. And I think those are all of the examples I had put together for today. I'm sort of putting that together.
Excellent. All right, well, Liz, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Sure. Great.
Do we have any additional questions from either in the room or online? Please put those in the chat. We'll give everyone a few more minutes. And while this is coming in, Liz, do you have any final closing thoughts or anything? I mean, this is all, no pun intended, maybe pun intended, gold. This is all great.
Well, thank you. So I guess for me, the answers are, don't be afraid to ask. In other words, I never feel bad, especially when I know I've hit it out of the park, about asking for the testimonial, asking for the LinkedIn recommendation. Just put that right away. Don't be anything. I mean, ask. I mean, this is like going out and dating, for goodness sakes, right? All the person can say is no. It's not like they're going to break up with you and do something terrible. So I think, to me, it's always just have the courage to ask. If you ask for the referrals, ask for the testimonial, you'll be fine. And the second, I love to literally read through reviews, and I want to hear what they're saying about me and my business. And as I said, you can really see consistent themes if you dissect it and see, instead of saying, oh no, ooh, they just had a bad day. Sometimes, you know what? There's little kernels of knowledge right there in that review, if only you would listen a little bit closer.
Excellent. From a few people, from Sean, for a subject, what's a good subject for a cold target email? Ooh. So for a subject line for a cold email, if you're sending out to a target.
Boy, do I get a lot of these a day. The number one thing that I get is, I want to get on your calendar. Let's get a I mean, every single email I get is for, let's get a date on the calendar, let's get a date. And I don't understand why I would give them 15 minutes. So that usually doesn't make sense. I would rather see an email that is personalized and relevant. So let me take it to the next level. Liz, do you need help with automating your marketing? Liz, would you like a better email automation campaign, right? Really help me solve what you can solve versus, do you have 15 minutes? I'm never going to give you 15 minutes when I don't understand who you are. The other things that I'd like to do is, I hate the people who cloak the price. So for example, I think I got 3 emails this week telling me that I could be interviewed by some non-existent publication or whatnot. And you know darn well there's a fee for them brokering this deal to be on their website. I would rather just put the whole thing out there and say, Liz, we think you'd be a perfect candidate for this. Here are the things, here are frequently asked questions, here's the price, but here's the benefit for you. Right? Everything is in terms of benefit or the result. We have seen clients who went on this publication go ahead and get 5 new leads from that one interview. So I'm happy to see those sort of things, but what really, and I think everyone here would have the same thing, is I can't stand the minute I can accept a connection for somebody on LinkedIn. You know exactly what happens. You connect them at 11:04, and at 11:06, they ask you for that appointment and they try to sell you. And then the second thing you do is you unfollow them and you break that connection. So what I would rather see in that whole sales cycle is, going back to what we've heard here, is value, 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 value. I mean, I have 3 books, so you know what I do? They're all in PDF, an ebook or Kindle. I'm like, we talked about this. Let me just gift this to you. That works well too.
There you go. Very nice. This is from Zarara. For example, let's say you open a brand new store and you have a business idea with a concept that hasn't been tested yet, and you're trying to convince people to give you a try.
And she was down with that.
Okay. So I do want to make sure that I heard that, which is opening a retail store.
A brand new store, or if you have a business idea. So it is either or. So they may not.
That's okay.
With a concept that you haven't tested yet, and you're trying to convince a person to give you a chance. So they're having a hard time validating, think it's a good idea, because they're trying to get someone to give them a chance.
Yep. So I think we're back in the same boat, which is ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, and find somebody who is a competitor. And I think we know from all of the work with StartUpNV and founders, if there's no competitor, there's typically no market. It could be, this is just like pods, but we store it locally. This is just like this, but it's like this. It's just like Bruce Willis and Die Hard, but it's like this. So we're happy to have a little bit of that. I mean, I remember, for example, in the publishing industry, when the very first books came out that were murder mysteries with recipes, right? That never existed. People had no idea where to shelve them. Like, what the heck is this? But it was, well, this is just like a murder mystery plus this. So for me, I always find that, it has to be the competitors, but use it. What I like to say is take the unfamiliar to the familiar. It's my favorite analogy to do it. It's just like IKEA, but it's 100 square feet instead of a 100,000 square foot store, right? It's just like Home Goods, except it does this. It's just like Golf Mart, but instead of just trying the golf clubs, you can actually do a virtual reality test. So that's one of my favorite, familiar to the unfamiliar, so that they can relate to it.
Any tips for college kids as customers or users?
Ooh, yes. So few. So when I've worked with 3 folks so far in that college market, if they're still at home and high school going, it was always through the parents. So that was the first thing. The good news is reaching kids in college today has gotten so much easier because of so much marketing and because you just live on Insta or TikTok. I mean, it's made your life easier.
Yeah, they don't.
No. Okay, so the question was, I think reaching college kids today is so much easier, right? Because it's social media and it's TikTok. I mean, that is the answer to a lot of that problem. And then don't forget, not only is it creating content, and you're seeing now some of this, it cracks me up, authentic content, which means you pay people, but it's not as slick and as produced as before. It's true, like content creators online are creating that content, but they're being paid by somebody else.
Fair enough. This is basically a confirmation follow-up from Sean, who posted the question, what's a good subject line in your email? So a focused question then would be that better as an intro.
Much better.
Okay.
Yep,
excellent.
I like focused questions quite a bit.
From Ben, tell me about how I would garner eyeballs at a convention event for a new software as a service product.
Yep.
It's very specific, but.
Yeah, I've done tons and tons of them. Few ideas. One, if you're trying to bring in social media, the whole idea, we're so used to like raffles. And I think I think people still love prizes, but my favorite thing is if you're trying to build their social media following, if I were doing a trade show today, all my prizes would be on social media. So I will announce it every hour on the hour and pick your favorite channel. Like I will announce it on Insta, on who won that wheel or this to create engagement. I think the other thing, what I'm always looking for is engagement at a booth. Like, how do you get to that conversation where people say, tell me more?
Excellent.
Right? But if you just think that put your business card in for a drawing, that technology is so old. We don't want your business card. We want you. We want a QR code. You scan it. You fill out the thing. I mean, that's how we do it. And then the other thing to remember, of course, with trade shows, the early bird catches the worm. So one of my clients was always did bridal shows. And if you go to a trade show today, your entire email sequence or whatever you're going to do for follow-up needs to be completely written. And the minute you scan their badge, boom, it's already sent. The lag time has to be virtually 0. And then you win. Every day you wait, your competitor grabs that business.
That's actually a really good point. And Ben, I hope you internalize that is lag time means lost deals, lost sales
Yes, it
when
does.
it comes to conventions.
So that is, and I just saw the results were so clear. If you have the entire thing mailed out, you want a sample, boom, literally, I would take it back, it would go to the office, the sample went out.
Excellent. And we will field one more question before we make some closing remarks. And Liz, thank you so much.
Sure.
These are excellent.
Right, let me just repeat the question so people aren't lost online.
Yes, please, thank you.
So his real question was a lot of these institutions or that they're schools or government agencies erroneously believe that, well, they got a negative review, so I will just shut down. The point to be made here is really simple. We have made it to a different place where everybody has a voice and they're going to find a mouthpiece. So regardless of what their social channel is, they're going to rag on you. And you either take that information, leverage it and listen to it and change it, or you take it and you address it and you realize that some people will never be happy. But to me, the answer is, if you think, well, I will just delete my Insta account, guess what? They'll pick, I mean, if you haven't seen TikTok lately on how many people are ragging on the Fritos, the McDonald's, the Panera, this wasn't big enough, there were 4 tortillas in the thing. Everyone has something to complain about. But if it's out there, they're still going to think it, just now you get to hear it. And that's what we call social listening. So deleting an account doesn't stop the negative chat about you. It just makes sure it goes everywhere instead of in one place.
Yeah. Excellent. Liz, thank you so much.
Sure.
Once again, appreciate your time. Everyone, thank you for joining us both in person and online. We're very excited to have you on these series and hope you find value in these. And again, thank you, Liz. please join us in 2 weeks. We are actually, no, 3 weeks actually. We're taking a break next week, and our next session will be on the 26th for our final session for the customer engagement series. Ira Gustin will be speaking on customer support and incentives. Also, we will have a recording of this session available to you online on the portal and on YouTube as well. And please go on to LinkedIn probably and connect with Liz. Liz is a great engager and always happy to engage with the ecosystem and those in it. Again, thank you so much for everyone for joining us, and we will see you on the 26th.
Perfect.